The world had ended quietly. There was no nuclear blast, no thundering invasion from the skies. Just a sickness, slow, creeping, and relentless. When the sickness took hold, it erased the rules. Governments fell, cities emptied, and the dead rose. And now, years later, nothing remained of the old world but memories and ruins. Gavin Cole had survived 3 winters since the collapse. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but he had a rule: trust no one, and never, ever get attached. That rule had kept him alive. It had also made him lonely. He scavenged alone, slept alone, and talked to no one but himself. His only companions were the occasional radio broadcasts, static-filled recordings from a time when hope still meant something. On this particular day, the wind howled across the broken asphalt of the outer city, dragging leaves and bones through the abandoned streets. Gavin moved like a shadow, ducking through broken windows and hollow buildings, his eyes always scanning. He knew this area. The city used to be his home, before everything turned to ash and rot. He had come searching for canned goods and batteries, maybe a medical kit if he got lucky. The pharmacy on 5th and Carroll still had a back room that hadn't been picked clean. As he pushed through the half-inch door, shotgun in hand, something strange happened. He heard humming. A melody. Soft, slow, and heartbreakingly familiar. He froze. No one hummed anymore. Not unless they were crazy or something worse. The sound came from deeper inside, past the collapsed shelving and scattered debris. He stepped carefully, shotgun raised. Every footstep seemed too loud. Then he saw her. A girl. Sitting on the floor in a patch of light, legs crossed, arms wrapped around a stuffed rabbit that had long since lost one eye. She wore a red raincoat, tattered and stained, and her black hair hung in messy curls down her back. She rocked gently as she hummed. Gavin's finger tightened on the trigger. Then she turned. Her eyes were pale. Not white, like the others. Pale blue, with a faint glow around the iris. Her skin was pale too, but not rotting. Not yet. Her lips moved, not in a growl, but in speech. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Gavin didn't know what to say. Was she alive? Infected? A hallucination? "Who are you?" he barked. "What are you?" She stood slowly. The stuffed rabbit dropped to the floor. "I'm different," she said simply. And then she smiled. Gavin had seen zombies. He'd seen what they did to the living. They didn't talk. They didn't smile. And they definitely didn't cry. But there were tears forming in the corners of this girl's eyes. "My name was Lila," she said, looking at her reflection in a cracked mirror nearby. "I think I'm still her. At least, parts of me." He didn't lower the gun. "You're infected," he said. "You shouldn't be talking. You should be tearing me apart." "I can't," she said softly. "I tried once. When I first woke up. There was a man. He was bleeding. I felt the hunger. It screamed at me. But I couldn't. I didn't want to hurt him. So I ran. I've been hiding ever since." Gavin's instincts told him to walk away. This was dangerous. Whatever she was, half human, half zombie, it wasn't natural. But his heart, the part he thought had shut down years ago, told him to stay. "Are there more like you?" he asked. Lila shook her head. "I don't think so. At least, I haven't seen any. The others, they can sense I'm not like them. But they still try to kill me." Something about her voice, gentle, tired, sad, slipped through Gavin's defenses. He lowered the shotgun an inch. "How have you survived this long?" She smiled again. "I stay quiet. I don't sleep much. And I don't eat, not what they eat. Sometimes animals. Sometimes just water. It's hard. But I'm still here." A sudden growl from outside snapped them both to attention. Gavin turned, weapon ready, as shadows flickered across the pharmacy windows. A group of infected, real ones, had caught their scent. Lila took a step toward him, panic in her eyes. "Please," she said. "Don't leave me." Gavin hesitated. Then, against everything he believed, he nodded. "Come on," he said. "If we move fast, we can lose them in the tunnels." As they sprinted into the shadows, Gavin realized something terrifying. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't want to be alone. And that scared him more than the zombies ever could. Let me know when you're ready for part 2, or if you'd like the outline for all 8 parts too. Gavin didn't usually make rash decisions, but running with a half-zombie girl through the old sewer tunnels beneath the city certainly qualified. Lila followed closely behind, the hem of her red raincoat fluttering as her bare feet barely made a sound. Behind them, the echoes of snarling, rotting creatures chased their every step. "Down here," Gavin grunted, ducking into a side passage and kicking a rusted gate shut behind them. The infected shrieked in the distance, their footsteps fading as they took the wrong turn. Gavin pressed his back to the cold tunnel wall, heart thudding in his chest. He turned to Lila. She wasn't out of breath, of course she wasn't. She didn't breathe. "You really don't want to eat me?" he asked, shotgun still loosely in his hands. She gave a tired, almost offended look. "If I did, would I have saved your life back there?" He frowned. "You didn't exactly throw yourself at them. I led them away, didn't I? You just didn't notice." Gavin paused. Maybe she had. It was hard to tell in the chaos. But something deep in his gut was shifting. Trust. It was stupid, reckless, and growing. They walked deeper into the tunnels. The old storm drains had once carried rainwater out of the city, but now they were empty, save for rats and the occasional corpse. Gavin had used them before, secret routes that the infected rarely explored. But he'd never brought anyone with him. Lila glanced at him. "Why are you helping me?" He stopped, unsure how to answer. "Because you asked," he said finally. "And I guess, you looked lonely." She smiled, faint and sad. "I've been lonely a long time. Even before this." They found a place to rest in an old maintenance room off the main tunnel. Gavin checked the door, wedging a rusted pipe through the handle. Inside, there was nothing but a broken chair, some scattered tools, and an old vending machine that had long since been looted. Lila sat on the floor, curling her legs beneath her. "You always this quiet?" she asked. Gavin shrugged. "Talking gets people killed." "So does silence," she whispered. He looked at her, really looked this time. The faint greenish tint to her skin. The way her eyes glowed in the dark, just barely. But there was something else. Something human. "Do you remember who you were?" he asked. Lila nodded slowly. "Little pieces. My mom's voice. A song my dad used to play. A boy I liked once. But it's like looking through dirty glass. The more I try to remember, the more it fades." "And now?" he asked. "What do you feel now?" "Hunger," she admitted, not meeting his gaze. "All the time. Like a knife twisting inside me. But there's something else too. Fear. Hope. You." Gavin raised an eyebrow. "Me? You smell like something familiar. Not food. Just alive. Like something I lost. It helps me stay grounded. I think it's why I didn't attack you." He sat down across from her. His fingers drummed on the shotgun stock. "I don't know what to do with you," he muttered. "I don't either," she replied softly. A strange silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just uncertain. Like two people from different worlds trying to meet in the middle of a battlefield. "Do you think there's a cure?" she asked suddenly. "For you? For all of us?" Gavin had stopped hoping for that years ago. The scientists were the first to die. The hospitals became slaughterhouses. No one knew where the virus came from, or why it affected some more slowly than others. "No," he said flatly. "But maybe, there's control. Maybe you're proof of that." Lila's eyes lit up. If I'm proof, maybe I can help. Maybe others like me are out there, hiding. Scared. Or maybe you're the only one, Gavin said. And the world's going to kill you for it. She didn't respond. The truth hung heavy between them. Later, as Gavin dozed off with one eye open, Lila sat in the corner, watching the dark. She didn't sleep, couldn't. Instead, she hummed again. That same melody. Haunting, beautiful, broken. Gavin stirred. That song, what is it? Lila hesitated. A lullaby. My mom used to sing it when I had nightmares. She paused. Now I sing it, when I'm afraid of myself. Gavin looked at her, her silhouette bathed in the faint green of a glow stick he had cracked earlier. There was something fragile in her. Something worth saving. Even if it killed him. He closed his eyes again. Outside, the dead still hunted. But in that little room underground, something impossible had begun. Something that looked like love. Morning came quietly, or at least as close as it could in the post-apocalyptic tunnels beneath the city. Gavin packed his bag with practiced efficiency. Water bottle, flashlight, bandages, ammo, every item earned and guarded like gold. He tossed a protein bar to Lila, forgetting for a moment that she didn't need it. She caught it anyway, examining the wrapper curiously. I used to love chocolate, she said. I think. Gavin nodded, unsure how to respond. Every conversation with her felt like walking a tightrope, between human and not, between sympathy and fear. They emerged from the tunnels hours later, pushing aside a metal grate hidden behind an old laundromat. The air above ground was thick with rotten ash. Buildings stood like broken teeth under a gray sky. The world was still dead. We need to keep moving, Gavin muttered. The horde that found us yesterday could still be circling. Lila nodded, pulling the hood of her red raincoat over her head. She looked like a ghost drifting through the ruins. Gavin caught himself watching her more than he liked, trying to understand her, trying not to care. They moved through the city's shell, sticking to alleys and collapsed walls, avoiding wide streets and the groans that echoed across the emptiness. As they passed the charred remains of what once might have been a family home, Lila paused. She touched a burnt tricycle, fingers trembling. I think I used to live near here, she said. Gavin looked around. This part of the city was hit hard. Looters, fires, then the bombs. Lila nodded. I remember, sirens. And screaming. My mom was trying to get me to the car. I didn't want to leave my rabbit behind. She pulled the stuffed animal from her coat pocket, eyes distant. I guess we didn't make it. Gavin said nothing. The weight of grief was something he understood too well to question. As they pressed on, they reached the edge of a survivor zone. Gavin had avoided it for months, too many people, too many problems, but he needed supplies, and their medical stores were well guarded. Problem was, survivors didn't take kindly to the infected, no matter how unique they were. We'll need to be careful here, Gavin warned. I'll stay outside the perimeter, Lila said quickly. Just tell me what you need. No, Gavin said after a moment. You stay close. I'll find us a back way in. They approached from the west wall, through the collapsed remains of an old church. The bell tower had long since crumbled, and the stained glass was shattered, but the underground crypt still had an opening. Gavin knew about it from his old maps. Few did. He helped Lila down into the shadows. As they crept through the tunnel, Lila whispered, Do you think your people will believe you? About me? No, Gavin said bluntly. They won't. Then why bring me? Because I'm tired of surviving for no reason, he said. And you're the first reason I've seen in a long time. They fell silent after that. Inside the survivor zone, Gavin kept Lila hidden in an abandoned guard shack near the southern edge. He left her with a walkie and slipped through a drainage ditch toward the market tents. The area was bustling, by post-collapse standards. Men and women with rifles patrolled the area while traders argued over dried meat and scavenged supplies. Gavin bartered quietly, picking up antiseptic, gauze, and a few hard-to-find batteries. But the whole time, he could feel eyes on him. He wasn't a regular here anymore, and unfamiliar faces drew suspicion. Then he heard it, static from his walkie. Lila's voice crackled through. "Gavin, someone's coming." He bolted, racing back toward the guard shack. When he reached it, he found 2 armed men already there, pointing rifles at Lila. She stood still, hands raised, her rabbit clutched to her chest. "What is she?" one of the men snarled. "She's infected." "She's not like them," Gavin shouted, raising his hands to show he was unarmed. "She's a corpse walking," the other man barked. "You brought a monster into our camp." "No," Gavin said, stepping between them and Lila. "She's not. She's something different. Something better." The 2 guards exchanged looks. "You need to leave now," one said, voice colder than stone. "Next time, we shoot on sight." Gavin didn't argue. He just nodded, gently taking Lila's hand and guiding her away. As they fled the survivor zone, Lila whispered, "I'm sorry." "For what?" Gavin asked. "For being me." He squeezed her hand. "Don't be," he said. "You're the only thing in this world that doesn't scare me." They disappeared into the ruins once more, unwelcome in both the world of the living and the dead, together in the strange space between. Ready for part 4? It's about to get deeper, emotionally and dangerously. The days that followed felt like fragments from a dream, quiet, strange, and dangerous in their peace. Gavin and Lila moved farther away from the survivor zones, venturing into the outer edges of the Deadlands where few dared to go. They found shelter in a forgotten ranger station deep in the forest, surrounded by miles of nature slowly taking the world back. Ivy had wrapped around the walls, and the moss-covered roof sagged in the middle, but it was home. It was there, in that quiet place, that something unthinkable happened. Lila smiled more. She laughed, sometimes. Gavin found himself talking more than he had in years, about his brother who didn't survive the first wave, about his dog, about how he used to love stargazing. She listened. "I'm not supposed to feel this," she whispered one night, sitting beside him on the cabin's porch. "This warmth. This pull." Gavin looked up from his fire starter. "Then why do you?" Lila touched her chest. "Because you remind me of who I was. Before I changed. When I was still, someone." A breeze rustled the leaves above them. A shooting star tore across the sky like a knife through black velvet. Gavin turned to her. "You're still someone. You never stopped being someone." She smiled, a little crooked. "You really believe that?" "I wouldn't be here if I didn't." Silence settled between them again, soft, not awkward. Then, without thinking, Gavin asked, "Lila, do you think love still matters in a world like this?" She looked at him, really looked, like she was trying to memorize every freckle on his face. "It's the only thing that does," she said. That night, they made a decision. A strange, impossible decision. They decided to get married. It wasn't legal. There were no papers, no witnesses, no rings. But under a sky full of stars, Gavin scavenged a necklace chain from his gear and slipped it around Lila's wrist. "I don't need promises," she said. "Just a moment that's ours." So they stood hand in hand beneath the night, with the fire crackling behind them and the ruined world 1,000 miles away. Gavin whispered his vows. "I vow to remember who you are, not what you've become. To walk with you through a world that won't understand. And to protect you, even when the world says I shouldn't." Lila placed her palm against his chest. "I vow to fight the hunger, for as long as I can. To hold on to my mind, my heart. And to remind you, when you forget, why we chose each other." They sealed it with a kiss. Cold lips met warm ones, but in that moment, Gavin didn't feel the chill of undeath. Only the heat of something real. The next morning, they awoke to the sound of footsteps. Human. Gavin grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. 3 figures. Armed. moving slowly through the trees toward the cabin. Scavengers, he muttered. Or worse. Lila stayed back. Her eyes sharpened, half human, half predator. They're not here by accident. Someone followed us. They packed quickly. Gavin grabbed what they could carry. But it was too late. A voice outside called, "We're not here to hurt you, man. Just saw the smoke. We're friendly." Gavin didn't respond. He'd heard that line before. Always ended the same. Then another voice, a woman's, spoke, calm and clear. "We saw you with her. The infected girl. The one with the red coat." Gavin cursed under his breath. "You don't have to run," the woman continued. "She's special, isn't she? We know. We've seen others like her. But she's different." Gavin froze. "Others," he whispered. Lila stepped beside him. "She's not lying." He turned to her. "How do you know?" "I feel it. It's like a pull. Like something calling from far away." They stepped outside slowly. 3 people stood at the edge of the clearing, 2 men and the woman who'd spoken. All wore mismatched armor, dirt-caked and worn, but their expressions were calm. "We call ourselves the Threshold," the woman said. "We've been looking for her kind. Those who turn, but retain their minds. You're the first proof they exist." Gavin narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" "We want to study her. Help her. Understand her. She could be the key to saving everyone." Lila stepped forward. "Or the reason they'll try to kill me." The woman nodded slowly. "It's a risk. But maybe it's time to stop hiding." Gavin's grip on Lila's hand tightened. For the first time, they weren't just running from death. They were running toward a question. Could love survive the end of the world, and maybe even save it? Gavin didn't trust them, but he didn't trust anyone anymore. Still, something about the woman from the Threshold, Dr. Maren Hale, felt different. She spoke like a scientist but looked like someone who had survived the end twice over. Her eyes were tired, yes, but also sharp. Watching everything. Especially Lila. The Threshold led them through the forest to an old research facility buried deep in the hills. It had been a wildlife center once, now converted into a field lab powered by solar rigs and guarded by ex-soldiers with suspicious eyes. "This place was built to observe rare animals," Maren explained as they walked past rusted enclosures and shattered glass. "Now we use it to study the rarest thing left in this world, hope." Gavin held Lila's hand tightly. She didn't speak, but he could feel the tension in her body. Her pupils narrowed as they passed through the sterilized hallway, where faint notes of bleach and decay lingered in the air. Inside a makeshift exam room, Dr. Hale turned to them. "If she truly hasn't attacked anyone, we need to understand why. Brain scans. Tissue samples. Non-invasive, I promise." Gavin stepped between them. "You don't touch her unless she says yes." Lila met Maren's eyes. "You can run your tests. But only if Gavin stays with me the whole time." Maren nodded. "Fair enough." For the next 2 days, they remained inside the facility. Lila was tested, gently, but thoroughly. MRI machines hummed. Electrodes were placed on her scalp. She endured it all without complaint, even as her hands trembled behind her back when the other doctors passed by with syringes and charts. Gavin stayed by her side, barely sleeping. He watched as they mapped her brain activity, noting differences between her and other infected. He heard whispers between the researchers. Words like neural resistance and cognitive retention. "She shouldn't be functioning like this," one muttered. "It's like her brain found a way to rewrite the virus." Maren brought Gavin into her office on the 3rd day. It was a small room filled with old charts, dusty notebooks, and photos of happier times. A younger Maren in a white coat. A man with a kind smile. A child. "My son was taken early," she said without preamble. "In the first wave. I watched him change. I tried to find a cure then. Failed. Gavin said nothing. She looked at him. But Lila, she's proof we were wrong about everything. The virus doesn't always destroy. Sometimes, it adapts. Or maybe she just fought harder than most, Gavin said. Marin studied him carefully. You love her, don't you? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I won't stop you from being with her, she said softly. But there's something you need to know. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Inside were photos. Old security footage. Notes. A list of names. Lila was on that list. Gavin's heart dropped. What is this? She wasn't infected by accident, Marin said. She was part of a trial. An experiment done at the very beginning, when we were desperate and stupid. We injected selected individuals with modified strains to test for resistance. She was one of them. Gavin's breath caught. You did this to her? She volunteered, Marin said quietly. She was older then. A college student. Bright. Brave. But we had no idea what it would do. Gavin stared at the image. Lila, alive. Human. Smiling for an ID badge. She had no memory of this life. He left the office in silence, storming down the hall until he reached Lila's room. She looked up as he entered. Something's wrong. You were part of an experiment, he said. That's why you're different. They did this to you. Her lips parted slightly. I didn't know. They said you volunteered. That you chose this. Lila turned away, looking at her reflection in the window. Would I have chosen this? I don't know, Gavin said. But it doesn't change how I see you. I thought I was a mistake, she whispered. Just a broken thing that didn't finish turning. But if they did this, if I'm designed. You're still you, Gavin said. You're the one who stayed with me when no one else did. You're the one who didn't bite me when you had every chance. I don't care how you got here. I care that you're here. Lila closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him. Her body was cold, but he didn't flinch. I don't want to be their cure, she whispered. I just want to be your reason. Gavin pulled her close. Then we don't owe them anything. But even as he said it, he knew the world wouldn't let her go so easily. They should have left the moment Marin confessed the truth, but Gavin had hesitated. He thought maybe the threshold was different. That maybe people had changed in the aftermath of the world's end. He was wrong. It started with the whispers. The guards started following them a little too closely. Lila's room, once freely accessible, now had guards stationed near the hallway, for her safety, they claimed. Then they took her blood without asking. Then came the metal door. Locked. From the outside. Gavin. Lila's voice rang out in panic, her fists pounding against the reinforced glass window in the door. What's going on? He shouted at the guards, pushed past them, but they didn't fight back. Not yet. Just blocked his way like statues trained to wait. Dr. Marin appeared, her expression calm, like she'd already rehearsed the speech. She's too important, Marin said. We've identified an anomaly in her cellular structure. Something we didn't expect. She's not just resistant, she reverses certain viral processes. That's why her skin isn't rotting like the others. That's why her mind hasn't decayed. She's the cure. She's not a sample. Gavin growled. She's a person. My wife. I know you love her, Marin said softly. But this is bigger than love. No, it's not, Gavin spat. It never was. Before she could respond, Gavin turned and sprinted. Straight for the back corridor, where he remembered seeing the emergency power junction. If he could kill the lights, disable the doors, 'cause chaos, he might have a shot. He reached the junction box, heart racing, unslung his rifle, and slammed the butt into the panel. Sparks flew. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the building, alarms blared. He didn't wait. He turned and ran back toward the lab corridor, where red emergency lights now strobed. People shouted. Doors hissed open automatically as the lockdown failed. He reached Lila's room just as the emergency lock disengaged. She bolted out and into his arms. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "Always." They moved fast. Down the back hall. Past confused researchers. Gavin drew his sidearm and shot a guard in the leg when he reached for his radio. Lila moved like a ghost beside him, quiet and quick. But they didn't make it far before they were cornered at the east wing stairwell. Marin stood at the top of the steps, a pistol in hand. Her guards flanked her. "Don't do this," she said, her voice trembling. "If you run, we'll never find you again. We'll lose the only chance humanity has to fight back." "I'm not your property," Lila said. Her eyes were glowing faintly in the red light. "And I'm not your cure." "You're both," Marin said. "Don't you understand? Your body is creating antibodies. You're healing yourself. If we can extract that process, you'll turn her into a lab rat," Gavin snapped. "And when that doesn't work, you'll dissect her." Marin hesitated. "If we don't do this, millions more will die." Gavin raised his rifle. "Then maybe the world doesn't deserve to be saved." The standoff stretched for what felt like hours. Then, one of the guards raised his weapon. And Lila moved. Fast. Too fast. She slammed into him, knocking him unconscious before he could fire. Then she kicked the second in the chest, sending him tumbling down the stairs. Only Marin remained. Lila stood over her. "You said I'm the cure," she said. "But all I ever wanted was to be left alone. I'm not here to fix what your world broke. I'm here to survive." Marin didn't beg. She just looked tired. Beaten. "I hope you're right," she said. "But if you're wrong, we'll all die." "Maybe," Lila said quietly. "But at least we'll die free." They ran. Out through the back entrance. Into the forest. No looking back. By the time the sun rose, they were miles away, deep in the wilderness again. They collapsed in a cave by a stream, panting, hearts still racing. "We can't keep doing this forever," Gavin said, staring at the sky through the trees. "They'll come looking again." Lila leaned against him. "Then we find a place no one remembers. Somewhere even the dead don't go." Gavin glanced at her, brushing a strand of tangled hair from her face. "Even now, even after what they tried to do you still believe in love?" She nodded. "I believe it's the only thing left that hasn't rotted." They sat in silence. But far in the distance, a new sound echoed in the air. Not moaning. Not human voices. A low, deep growl. Something else was out there. Something worse than zombies. And it was hunting them. The forest was supposed to be safe. Untouched. A forgotten green space that had reclaimed its silence after the world fell apart. But as Gavin crouched behind a mossy boulder with Lila by his side, listening to the unnatural growls echoing through the trees, he realized they weren't alone anymore. The sound was wrong. Not the hollow moans of the undead. This was something faster. More coordinated. Intelligent. Lila whispered, "They're not regular zombies." Gavin nodded. "No, they're hunting." They had stumbled into a clearing just before sunset, a wide, open space where the trees had collapsed in some long-ago fire. That's when they'd seen the first one. It moved on all fours, but could stand upright when it needed to. Its skin was taut, darker than the usual rotting gray. Its mouth didn't hang open stupidly like the rest. It snarled. And its eyes glowed faintly yellow. Gavin had fired a shot. It hadn't gone down. Just disappeared back into the brush like it was thinking. Now they were surrounded. Mutation? Gavin asked, breath tight. Or evolution, Lila whispered. Maybe this is what comes next. The pack, Gavin had already started calling them that in his mind, was toying with them. Circling. never fully revealing themselves. He had counted 4, but there could be more. They had to move. North, Gavin whispered. There's a ranger station 10 clicks out. If we can make it. Lila nodded, and together, they bolted from the rocks, darting into the undergrowth. Branches whipped at their faces. The growls erupted behind them, closer now. One of the creatures lunged from the shadows. Gavin turned mid-run and fired a shot. It hit the creature square in the chest, finally dropping it. But only one. The others kept coming. Faster. Gavin shouted. They burst into a ravine, sliding down loose gravel until they reached a dried creek bed. The air here was cooler. Damp. The sun was nearly gone. Too dark to shoot. Too dark to see. They needed fire. Gavin grabbed his pack and yanked out a flare. He struck it. Red light exploded into the night, casting long, dancing shadows on the trees. And for the first time, they saw all of them. 6. Maybe more. Thin and agile. Eyes glowing like wolves. They hissed at the light, but didn't retreat. One of them stepped forward. And it spoke. Not words. But something close. Broken syllables. A mimicry of language. Jeeve, her. Gavin's blood went cold. They're after you. Lila stood beside him, not afraid, furious. Because I'm different. Because I don't belong to them. The creature tilted its head. It looked curious now. Not dead, not live. And then it lunged. Gavin threw the flare. It struck the creature in the chest and ignited its clothes. It screamed, a shrill, guttural sound, and the others reacted instantly, retreating into the dark. Fire scares them, Gavin gasped. That's something. Lila didn't move. She was trembling, eyes wide, staring where the lead creature had stood. What is it? He asked. She turned to him. That thing, it was like me. Gavin looked at her. No. It wasn't. Yes, it was, she whispered. Only it didn't hold on. It gave in. He realized what she meant. If the virus hadn't been halted halfway, if her mind hadn't fought back, she might have ended up like that. How many more like that do you think are out there? She asked. I don't want to know. But she wasn't done. What if that's the future? What if I'm not a cure, just a delay? The question hung in the air like smoke. Then a low groan echoed behind them, soft, slow, familiar. One of the regular undead stumbled into view. Torn clothes. Dragging a limb. Brain dead. It didn't scare Gavin anymore. Not like the pack. The contrast was terrifying. Zombies were manageable. Predictable. These new things? They planned. They talked. We keep moving, Gavin said firmly. We don't look back. They climbed out of the ravine and pressed north. The night was filled with sounds they didn't recognize. But the pack didn't follow. Not yet. At sunrise, they reached the ranger station. Abandoned. But intact. Inside, Gavin found a radio. Static. Then a voice. This is Outpost Echo. To any survivors, we are real. We are safe. Coordinates to follow. He looked at Lila. You think it's real? She asked. I don't know. But we don't have many choices left. Lila hesitated, then nodded. We'll go. Together. Gavin wrapped an arm around her shoulder, watching the woods outside. The pack was still out there. Waiting. And something told him they hadn't seen the last of them. The coordinates were real. 3 days after the message, Gavin and Lila stood on a ridge, staring down at a place that looked like it didn't belong to the same broken world. A massive wall encircled a clean, fortified settlement built around an old hydroelectric dam. Inside, solar panels glinted in the sunlight. Watchtowers stood tall. Gardens flourished between concrete bunkers. Outpost Echo was alive. They approached with caution. A sentry spotted them and radioed down. Moments later, a gate opened just wide enough to let them in, under heavy watch. Doctors ran tests immediately. Lila didn't resist. She was done running. Gavin stayed close, his fingers never straying far from his weapon. After hours of silence and examination, a tall, silver-haired woman finally addressed them. Her name was Commander Sloan, leader of Echo. "She's extraordinary," Sloan said, eyes on Lila like a scientist studying a miracle. "Whatever's in her system, it's keeping the virus at bay. Even stabilizing it." "I'm not a lab project," Lila said calmly. Sloan held up a hand. "We're not the threshold. We're not here to lock you up. But we do need to ask something of you, of both of you." Gavin crossed his arms. "Go on." Sloan leaned forward. "We believe there's more like her out there. Mutated. Half-turned. Most are dangerous, some barely recognizable, but a few might still be like her. If we can find them, understand the link between them and the virus, we can slow the spread. Maybe stop it entirely." "And you want us to go back out there?" Gavin asked, eyebrows raised. "You know how to survive," Sloan said. "And she's the only one they seem to recognize. Or hesitate to attack." Lila looked out through the window. The wall. The safety. The gardens. It would be so easy to stay. But easy had never been part of her story. Later that night, Gavin found her sitting near the reservoir, watching the stars. "Do you want to stay?" he asked. She shook her head. "I want to live. But not if it means hiding while others like me are hunted or forgotten." He sat beside her, fingers brushing hers. "Then we go." She looked at him. "Even after everything? You'd still stay with me?" "Always," he said. "I didn't fall in love with the version of you that's human or undead. I fell in love with the one that never gave up." She smiled, soft, broken, but real. The next morning, Sloan handed them supplies, weapons, a custom radio, and a map. As they reached the gates, she gave them a final warning. "There's word of something new out there. A horde that moves like a single mind. Not pack. Not classic undead. Something in between. Be careful." They nodded. And then the gates opened again. The wilderness welcomed them back. Weeks passed. They moved from ruin to ruin, settlement to settlement. They saved who they could. Put down what they had to. And in the shadows, the creatures watched. Some attacked. Some followed. But some paused. Tilted their heads. Looked at Lila with something that resembled memory. They weren't just zombies anymore. They were becoming something else. One night, while camping in the shell of an old church, they found a girl, barely 12. Skin pale. Eyes faintly glowing. She didn't speak. But she didn't bite either. Lila sat with her all night. By morning, the girl reached out and held her hand. Hope. It was small. Fragile. But it was real. Months later, their names spread across the wasteland like stories around a fire. The survivor and the zombie bride. The ones who didn't run. The ones who saved instead of killed. Outpost Echo became a beacon. And more like Lila came. Scared. Lost. Half-turned. But alive. Some were saved. Some were too far gone. But every time someone asked Gavin if it was worth it, he would just look at Lila and say, "I married death, and she gave me life." In a world where love should have died with everything else, they proved it could still bloom among ashes and rot. Not all zombies were monsters. Not all survivors were human. And sometimes, love was the thing that refused to die. Let me know if you'd like the full audiobook-style version of the story, title card image prompts, or YouTube formatting.